your skin quality reflects your internal age as well.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're looking after yourself, you'll be healthy on the inside and the outside. It's important
Yes.
to know.
Hi.
Hi, Serena.
How are you, Dr. Sinclair?
Doing great. Call me David.
Okay, so we'll call you David. So I have Gizmo as my co-host.
Hey, Gizmo.
As usual.
Nice to see you.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We have a ton of people on who have already been waiting for the last 5 minutes to meet you. And for those of you who already know Dr. Sinclair, to know David, then you're really familiar with everything that he has to share with us today. But hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So I'm really excited. And I know that you probably need a bit of time to go over the protocol today. And I just wanted to say thank you from not just me, but also my community, because everyone is so excited to learn all your personal secrets for staying young. And it's so special that you're sharing that with us today. So many, as you can see, there's so many hearts and people are so excited. And so many highs and hellos. So for the people that don't know you yet, would you be so kind as to try and look at all the comments, as to try to just give a brief introduction, a brief background to who you are, what you've done, how you are here today with us. That would be amazing.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm David Sinclair. I'm a PhD in genetics. Originally from Australia. I still have my accent, but I've been here in the US for about 25 years, most of my life. And so I've been studying aging. My dream is to figure out why we age and then figure out why we don't have to. And so I studied at MIT, and I'm now at Harvard. I've been at Harvard for 21 years since I was a kid. And I think we've figured out one of the main reasons, if not the reason, we get old. Mm-hmm. And in my lab, we can drive aging very quickly forwards and backwards at will now in the lab, in cells and in mice. And we're applying that knowledge now to treating diseases, as well as, we hope, aging in people. Mm-hmm. And there are some supplements that we can take. There are certainly things we can eat, and when we eat, that's all important. And I've been applying this science.
Oh no, we lost volume. So. Okay, so we can hear you again. I lost volume. I couldn't hear you for that last bit. If you wouldn't mind just repeating just that last part of it. There's so many questions, oh my goodness. Okay, so I, just in case anyone else, and can you guys hear us okay? Would you mind letting us know if you can hear us and see us all right, just to make sure that we are all online and getting all of the information? Okay, good. So we have some thumbs up, a lot of hearts. Thank you guys for all your questions. I will definitely try and get through most of them without interrupting David too much. And I'm so sorry about that. It was just I lost audio, so I didn't know if anyone else did. Okay, everyone say yes.
I can say it again.
Oh, perfect. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, so I study aging. I've been applying what I've discovered on the cutting edge of science in my own life, and my dad's a scientist and he does it too. And he's now 82 and he started a new career and he's got a great life. He's got no illnesses. He's super energetic. So he's a beacon of hope for all of us. And today I want to talk about how we can live a life like that and beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love it. Thank you. So, okay, we're all back online. We lost you for 4 seconds, but now you're back. Okay, so many questions. All right, so thank you so much again for creating the space and making time to be with us here today. People are so grateful, and I am so grateful. And with all the hearts, you can see that people are just really excited to have you here today. So should we just dive right in? I know that there's so many questions about very specific conditions, very specific supplements, but maybe we can start. How about this? We'll start with, what is the biological clock?
Okay.
And how do we
And
measure that?
it's different than the female biological clock.
Yes.
Very different.
Yes.
Somebody wrote, these are hilarious. I keep laughing at the comments. Somebody wants to be a mouse in my lab.
Well, are you taking applications? Because clearly it'll happen.
It's a very small cage. I don't think you want that, but we want to bring drugs and supplements to people. So we want everyone to have the best life they can possibly have.
Yes. Very much in alignment on that.
Yeah, we are. That's what I love about you. You're all about the total person, the physical and the mental. So I don't know if people know, but we met at a conference a few weeks ago.
No, I didn't actually share that yet, but I'm happy to let you take the floor to share.
Well, that's part of the story. Serena and I didn't know each other, and we sat down at a dinner and just realized we had a lot in common about how we approach life and happiness and longevity. And I'm learning a lot from her. She's really knowledgeable in a lot of areas that I know nothing about. So I'm also here to learn. But today I think I'll be the teacher.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for your kind words. So gracious, and I receive it, and am so grateful that we met several weeks back. And this has been so fun to learn even more from you and to be able to share and share some of the things I know as well. So let's talk about how how we measure this biological clock. I know it applies to women, and how long can we live?
Well, let's start with how do we know how old we are? Now we can look in the mirror, and the mirror is actually a pretty good guide of how well you're doing. Plastic surgery and fillers and Botox aside, your skin quality reflects your internal age as well.
Yes.
So if you're looking after yourself, you'll be healthy on the inside and the outside. It's important to know. Now we can now measure your age very accurately. I could take some of your skin cells from your mouth or some blood, and I could take that back to my lab and look at chemicals that are added onto the DNA called methyls, and punch that into a computer, and it would tell you roughly, within 5%, plus and minus, how old you are biologically, not how old you are based on candles. And I know that you take very good care of yourself. I also, in my view, think you look a lot younger than you actually are. At least what I think you are. But anyway, you look great, and so I think that you'd come out much younger. But there are people who don't look after themselves. They smoke, they overeat, they don't exercise, they don't take certain supplements, and that combination is quite deadly, literally. And those people, on average, are older based on this clock. But the good news is, here's the great news: 80% or even more of that clock's ticking is determined by how we live our lives, not based on our genes. Right. So we really have control over what our lives will look like decades ahead.
Right. And that's really exciting. Kids was falling at me. That's really exciting. Should we and there's so many questions that I see, and I see them on here. I'm 100. Okay. Almost read the book.
I want what that person's having.
Okay, so as David's already mentioned, we're so in alignment because he's got obviously a protocol he's going to share with us, not just his lifestyle, but different supplements he's taking. But what I love that he emphasized, which you guys are already so familiar with because you follow me and you also follow him if you're here, is that it's really a whole comprehensive approach. It's really about its diet, its lifestyle, there's health of the body and the mind. And of course, there are supplements that you can take as well. Kiss. I'm trying to talk. We're live. Okay. So it'd be amazing if you could kind of dive into that right now. Would you mind? And then I know that there are a lot of people taking notes, and there's been so many questions about whether or not this live will be recorded and if there's going to be replays available. So there will be, go to my link in bio, and there's a place you can put your email in, and we will make sure that you get notified when everything is record these and we have it all cleaned up and the audio and the video is synced and we take out the glitches. And then once that replay is ready, you will be notified by email. So go ahead and do that. For everyone who's worried and wondering and is going to have to jump off and you can't take notes fast enough, don't worry. You will have access to that. So if that's okay. Yes, David?
Yes, totally. Unless I say something really stupid, and then I'll delete that. But so my book is behind you, and
yes,
so some of it's
we've already talked about it for a second before David came on.
Yeah. So page 304 has some notes already.
Yes.
But we'll make stuff available. Don't worry about that. We'll keep communicating.
Okay. So let's dive in.
Right. So where do you want to start? Diet?
Yeah, so let's start with the basics. Let's start with what people are really attuned with, at least in my community, is diet. And I talk a lot about that, but coming from you, it's a little bit different. And then maybe we could go into some of the supplements that you take, because so many people want to know what your routine looks like.
Okay. Well, so my typical day looks like this. So I'm trying to get a good night's sleep. It's been difficult with a lot of work and other things. But when I wake up in the morning, probably around 6, read some scientific papers in bed, and then I get out and I will have some coffee with a little bit of milk and some stevia sweetener. I avoid sugar as much as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. I haven't been eating desserts, by the way, since I was 40, but I do like to share or steal them because that doesn't really count. But sugar is bad. So I don't eat breakfast. I've been skipping breakfast since I was 25. I'm 52 now, so it's a bit of a while. And then I recently, over the last 18 months, started completely skipping lunch unless I'm socializing. And so most days of the week, probably 6 or 7 days out of a typical week, I will not eat anything except drink warm drinks, beverages, until dinner, and have dinner around 7 o'clock. And have a relatively small dinner, but not skimp. What does my dinner look like? I try to focus on plant foods, more like a rabbit's meal than a lion's. I try to eat vegetables that have been themselves put under adversity. My theory is that when we put ourselves in a state of perceived adversity, and plants do, we get benefits. And the plants that we eat, if they are picked when they're stressed out, so less water, a lot of sunlight, organic, local, even if there are caterpillar holes in the leaves, that's great. That means that those plants are making molecules that can benefit us. We call this xenohormesis. So if the food is local, organic, doesn't have to be pretty, but I look for colored foods because the color in those leaves comes with those good molecules. So one molecule that I'm known for is resveratrol from grapes, and you find it in red wine. But the amounts that I take every morning with my supplements, as one of my supplements, you'd need 200, 300 glasses of red wine a day, which I don't recommend. Please don't do that. Well, let me tell you about supplements. So in the morning, I have a few what are called polyphenols. Resveratrol is one. I have a teaspoon of that powder. It should be white. If it's brown or anything but white or gray, throw it away. It's contaminated or gone bad. Sometimes I put quercetin or quercetin, some people call it, curcumin, and I take some fisetin. And all of these molecules we discovered back in 2003 to 2005 extend the lifespan of simple animals like a nematode worm. And now people are finding that these molecules are very beneficial in humans as well in clinical trials. So it's been proven out from the last 20 or so years. And so I do that, but here's the important thing, Serena, and everyone listening. These plant molecules, once they're extracted out of the plant, they're not very soluble. They're equivalent to trying to eat brick dust. They'll go mostly straight through you. And so the trick is to mix them with something oily or a lot of protein. So yogurt is perfect. I have no sugar added yogurt, Greek yogurt. And I mix it in and they dissolve. And I know from studies that I've done on resveratrol that the absorption goes up 5 to 10-fold with some food. So do that. I actually mix the powder in. I don't just swallow it just to make sure it dissolves. Olive oil is a really good one, actually. Don't
Yes.
eat too much. There's a lot of calories in that, but a few teaspoons of olive oil. You might want to throw some balsamic vinegar or a bay leaf in there. Have a what do you call a vinaigrette for breakfast. That's great, and the oil will dissolve all of those plant molecules and get them into your system. And these molecules have been shown in animals for sure, and increasingly in human studies, to protect against cancer and heart disease and even Alzheimer's disease. I skipped lunch. I told you my dinner is pretty standard, but I do like to occasionally eat some bad stuff. I think, Serena, we discussed I eat too much dairy. I eat cheese, unfortunately. I'm trying to be better.
Okay. We'll work on that. So there's quite a bit of dairy, but it's always that combination, it's that balance. It's that balance between what you enjoy in your lifestyle and also that balance between what we talk about here a lot in my community, just eating that rainbow, getting all the vitamins, nutrients, and its highest level of density from, a variety of colored foods, right? And all the polyphenols. So that we're very much in alignment with, but it sounds like there are just some simple supplements that people can take in the dosages that you recommended that can really help, with the caveat that you really want to take your resveratrol with some fat for optimal bioavailability. So for those of you who aren't already doing that, but using that supplement, you can now just add a little bit of like a fat, an olive oil is great, as David was saying. It can really optimize your the maximum absorption of fat for you. So that's been super helpful. And I think that it's great that people know that you have some coffee and you have some dairy and you have some wine, because that is the lifestyle that most people lead. And so you want to be able to optimize your life. You want to be able to stay young as possible, but you also want to be able to enjoy life. So it's always sort of having that balance. And we talk a lot about that here. And there's a lot of tips that I give to kind of maintain that balance. And I love that you're very plant forward, where you say more rabbit than wolf. Is that what you said?
More rabbits meal than a lion's.
Than a lion, sorry, not wolf, lions. So more rabbits than a lion's meal. And I thought it was really interesting that you emphasized eating fresh stress plants was sort of ideal. And you had mentioned why, but if we could just sort of go back to that for those people who may have missed why you want to choose stress plants over beautiful, perfectly groomed plants.
Yeah. Well, they can be beautiful, but what you want are plants that have gone through a little bit of adversity before they were picked. Mm-hmm. So red wine is a perfect example. Red wines are typically from grapes that have fungus on them, botrytis, or are dried out or dehydrated before being picked. And that boosts the levels of these polyphenol molecules, which I theorize helps the plant, but also helps our bodies when we eat them for the same reason, which is that we have protective enzymes in the body. We call them longevity enzymes, and they come from longevity genes. And that some of these get activated by plant molecules. Now, we also can activate them ourselves. We can talk about how to do that.
Yes.
But yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah, we could talk about that when you're done with this part.
Okay. All right. Well, so if you're not eating resveratrol and quercetin physetin, which, by the way, I take in amounts that we'll share with you, but it's essentially a gram and half a gram and half a grams every morning. So what else can you do to boost the levels of these longevity enzymes? Now, the ones that I work on are called Sirtuins, and we first linked those to aging, well, back in 1994, 95, when I just arrived at MIT. Mm-hmm. Now, these Sirtuins, think of these as the guardians of our body, but they become complacent. They don't work very well, and we don't have a lot of them in our body as we get older, but also if we don't live the way that we all really know we should. So if we sit down all day and we're stressed, and particularly if we eat too much food and too often, they don't get activated and their levels in the body go down. Mm-hmm. But there are ways to boost them. We mentioned that you can take polyphenols.
Right.
There's another one we should touch upon in a minute called NAD.
Yes.
But a natural way to do it is to be a little bit hungry during the day. Try skipping one meal. You can even try two, but don't do it all at once. It's very difficult to do what I do from a standing start. You'll just give up. The other thing you can do is to move. Make sure you move, with whether it's the optimal 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day, or do a little bit of jogging, or just move and get your heart rate up for just 10 minutes a few times a week. It'll have huge rewards. You can reduce your chances of death in your 70s by 40% by doing that alone. You can also do cold shock and heat shock, which would be saunas. We think that those also turn on these longevity genes that really are in our bodies to protect us when times are tough. But the problem with the world today is we try to reduce any adversity. We don't need to move. We don't need to exercise. We don't have to lift weights, which is another thing that I do and I think is important, or Pilates, for instance. Even our suitcases have wheels on them. Everything is to make our lives easier, but at the detriment of our long-term health.
And I think that's it's just so the nature of our society. Everything is about convenience and having that sort of instant gratification for everything, and that's how we've kind of created our lives and with our devices. And so it's really good to remember that it's what you do every single day that layers week after week, month after month, year after year, that's really going to give you the benefits that you're looking for kind of in that moment. So it's a good reminder to everyone that movement and maybe taking an extra 10 or 15 minutes to get from one destination to another by walking instead of driving is actually going to do so much more good for you than you realize, even though you want to get there as soon as possible. Yes, so a lot of questions about whether or not the live will be saved. Yes, the live will be saved. We are recording it and we will clean it all up. I apologize for those of you who have found Gizmo distracting. He is my co-host and sometimes he does his own thing. But we will try to make sure that all of that is edited out. Should we dive into what we were talking about, what we said we were going to veer off to, or should we try and answer some questions? We have like maybe 25, 30 minutes, and there's probably 600 questions that came in.
Let's cover NAD first, because this is what a lot of people have heard about.
Yes, it would have been one of the questions too. Yes.
Oh well, you're the host. I shouldn't.
No. I wanted. We obviously need to dive into NAD. So.
All right, let's do that. So NAD is a really tiny molecule in our body that we need to live. Without it, we would be dead in a minute. And so we need it, and we need a lot of it. We have a lot in our bodies. It's one of the most abundant molecules in our body, and we're always making it. But as we get older, we make less and less. And if we don't exercise and we don't have some hunger, the body stops making it as much. And actually, it's one of my students measured the skin levels of NAD in a 25 versus a 70-year-old, and even a 50-year-old. And actually, between 25 and 50, the levels of NAD went down twofold. So why does that matter? Well, NAD is the fuel for these Sirtuin defenses, these enzymes that we work on that make the body healthy and prevent diseases. And so what you can do is, in addition to a healthy lifestyle, you can also take Resveratrol, which is the accelerator pedal for the Sirtuin. But there's the fuel for the Sirtuin, which is NAD. Now, taking NAD can work. And there are various ways you can do that. There's IV. Some people swallow it. I'm not sure yet if NAD directly goes into old cell types. It might need to be broken down. We need to research that. But there's another way to get NAD levels up, which I know works based on my research, which is to swallow NMN, which is the first precursor that the body uses to make into NAD. And so I take a gram of NMN every morning. And I know from studying dozens of people that raises the blood levels of NAD 2 to 3-fold. And I have very high Sirtuin activity, 20 times a normal person. It's been measured. And so my hope is that I'm protected against aging and diseases that aging causes, in part because of that, in combination with a great lifestyle.
And so thank you for sharing that. There have been so many questions about NAD versus NMN and the different ways you can put it into your body. And so we see a lot of people don't know what NMN is. And so maybe you can repeat that one more time. And obviously, what your thoughts are with one versus another. Let's say if you're doing it intravenously, or if you're doing it subcutaneously, if those benefits are equal to taking the NMN orally.
Well, it can be given intramuscularly as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know which is the best method. In fact, the clinical trials that I'm doing are just based on a capsule being swallowed, a pill actually. We do need more research to be able to say what they do and which is better. There's a lot of people who feel better, have more energy, can do more exercises with it, play their sport better. That's consistent with our mouse studies. When we give NMN to our mice, they have less frailty and they have more energy. They can run 50% further on a treadmill after 4 weeks, and much better blood flow in the body and the brain, which is very important for the elderly particularly. Mm-hmm. So NMN is short for nicotinamide mononucleotide, and it's a phosphate, which is phosphorus and oxygen. It's a sugar, and then it's vitamin B3, niacin, and those are connected, bonded together, and then the body puts two of those together to make NAD once it gets into the cell, and then the NAD helps the body turn on the Sirtuins to protect us, but also to make more energy for the body and rev up those little power packs called mitochondria.
Yes. So I hope that, and thank you for that actually very simple explanation to kind of break it down, because there's so many questions about that. And as you see, there's so many more. And there's a lot of people who are making references to Dr. Sinclair's book. I'm just going to hold it up again one more time here. So I pinned a comment at the very bottom here, and it has Dr. Sinclair's Instagram handle. So if you haven't yet, I would encourage you to go and follow. You'll have links to everything that he's doing, his site, all his work. He has incredible posts that gives you updates on all the research that he's doing in his labs. And I would encourage you to also follow his lab's Instagram account as well. It's called Sinclair Lab, and you want to get his book. So a lot of the questions that you have can be answered in that book. And for the ones that I think some people really want to know what the protocols are, some people may have joined late, we will have that here in the replay for the live, but you definitely want to get the book. There's all kinds of great stories and secrets, and again, I really apologize for Gizmo. He's just attention hungry today.
Well, people are saying such nice things. Thank you, everybody. People are saying their favorite book and who hasn't read it. So thank you. It's really, really kind of you to say those things. It took me 10 years to write it, but it was so much fun. I'm writing another one.
Yes, and we can't wait to hear about that. We're going to have to do that again when the other one comes out.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of these questions, if that's okay. And obviously, there's so many questions about the NAD. There are questions about NAD and NMN for people who have cancer. There's a lot of questions about metformin. There's a lot of questions about, let's kind of look at those two, because I'm seeing a lot of repeat questions that are kind of coming through. There are a lot of questions coming through. Can we save these questions? Yeah? Okay. So that we can try and address them. Maybe we'll do it in like a blog or something. But would you mind, are those two kind of okay to talk about?
Let's start with metformin.
Yes. Great.
Metformin is a drug that's given to type 2 diabetics who have high blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And what was discovered by accident was looking at people who take metformin and looking at what other diseases they get or don't get in this case. And of course, people are healthier with their blood sugar levels, but those people also live longer than people that don't take metformin on average. Mm-hmm. And they're also protected against heart disease and cancer and frailty. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited about metformin as a way for people who don't yet have type 2 diabetes to slow down aging and protect against those other diseases. Mm-hmm. And we've calculated that by taking metformin, you could, that's a lot of hearts, thank you. By taking metformin, you could make people live a few years longer at least, maybe 10, but at least a few. And that would save the U.S. economy, or a value to the U.S. economy, of $86 trillion over the next few decades. So I know we're not into economies in here and money here, but often people think, well, what's going to happen if we have all these older people? Well, if they're healthier and they live longer, they cost much less, and there's so much money that we waste on practicing sick care, not health care.
Yeah.
So I take a gram of metformin most days of the week. Sometimes I don't, because I'm one of the 20% of people that have a rough time with it in my stomach. I need a bit of food in my stomach to be able to tolerate it. But I am going to try the slow release version or the purer forms.
Compounded.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah, my
Yeah.
stuff isn't necessarily ultra pure, so I'm going to try that. But metformin works in part by turning on the mitochondria, making mitochondria more energetic and more numerous. And that's really important because having more energy allows your cells to repair better. But by the way, the metformin also activates these genes that I work on, the Sirtuins, so it's a double impact. What was the other drug you wanted to talk about?
So there were a couple other supplements that I know of. You listed off a few. It wasn't a drug. It was the question that I asked alongside the question about metformin was there are some people who were curious about NMN, and if I'm not going to ask you about any specific brand, but if if there's any guidance that you had on that. It was a very common question, and whether or not these would be helpful for people with specific conditions, obviously cancer being one of them. There are lots of conditions that were listed over the course of this live so far. But that was obviously one that I wanted to address, and if you felt that you could answer that.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at all these questions. There's just so many.
Yes.
So people just want to know about metformin. I swallow metformin as a pill with a little bit of food, a little bit of medicine. NMN. So I cannot mention brands because I'm a professor, and people will use my name to sell their products. They already do. Though I will say, Alive by Science, which is a company that sells NMN, was kind enough to take my video and name off their website. They were very responsive when I alerted them to that. So Alive by Nature is one of the companies that sells pure NMN. Now, what I can tell you to look for is a trusted company. You want it to be GMP, which is good manufacturing practices, so there won't be contaminants in there. And then you also want your NMN to be white.
And this is great, and thank you so much for answering this, because it comes up so often. I feel like it's just good for people to know that you can't really give brand names, but these are, as a consumer, what you want to look for when you're making a purchase of this product.
Right. So one of the things I can help with is what it should look like, because often products are contaminated or mixed with something. Pure NMN should dissolve very easily in your mouth, and to me it tastes like burnt popcorn, or it's tasty actually, slightly sweet. Remember, it's got a sugar in there, and it's a little bit salty as well. But if it is gritty, then the manufacturers have added a filler, and I like to avoid those ones.
And so thank you for saying that. And another question actually that came up quite a bit before the live, just when people had sent in via text and through the direct messages, was about Berberine. And I also saw that question come up a lot just in the course of this live, as well as an alternative to metformin for people who are trying to take something that's a little bit more natural, if that's where their comfort zone is when it comes to supplementation or supplementation.
It's a great option, and we've studied Berberine in my lab, and it works really well in the animal studies for diabetes and for revving up mitochondria. And in fact, I used to take Berberine before I had access to metformin, which requires a prescription. Berberine you can buy at any pharmacy or online.
Right.
Again, you want to look for purity and trusted brands, GMP. But Berberine should be yellow, not white. But I think it's a great alternative. And if you look at the science behind it, there have been some really convincing human studies of people taking 1 to 2 grams a day. And they have benefits with their blood sugar, which is similar to what metformin does. It's slightly less potent, of course. It's not a drug. But I think it's a great alternative.
Is there, and you may not be able to answer this question, but is there a specific amount that you would recommend to achieve the same results if someone chooses to use Berberine instead of Metformin?
Yeah. So in case my colleagues and employer are listening, none of this is a recommendation. I don't do that.
None.
It's scientific information and my personal view. Okay. And always consult a doctor. And you want to do blood tests to make sure that this is working and you're not hurting your body, particularly the liver. AST and ALT are two things you can measure to make sure your liver is doing well. And I always do that. I've been monitoring myself for over a decade to make sure that anything that I try is not doing me harm, because I need to know that before I talk about it with other people. And I know, Serena, you're the same.
Yes, very much the same. For those of you who don't know, I always run labs, have labs done on any clients before I make recommendations, and it's something that I do regularly, that I recommend other people do regularly as well, at least every 6 months, if not 3, so that you know what's happening inside your body.
Yeah. So the doses in the clinical trials are 1 to 2 grams a day. Again, I think it's not very soluble, so you probably would want to mix it or eat it with food for it to get absorbed.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for that, just because I had so many questions that came in about that, and it did pop in quite often. Is there anything before I dive into some of these questions did you want to make sure that we covered before going into questions? There are lots of questions.
Well, just briefly, it's a super exciting time for longevity. We've got the science that I'm talking about. And there's new discoveries being made all the time. We can measure your age. And we just published a paper in the journal Nature that showed that, at least in animals and human cells and little mini brains that we can now grow, we can literally turn back the clock, that clock that we can measure. And there are some doctors who are learning now how we can actually literally turn back that, what we call the epigenetic clock. And so I'm so excited that we're at a point in history where we have to stay healthy and alive for longer, because these technologies, this understanding, this knowledge is just coming into the forefront of medicine.
Yes.
And we need to be healthy and alive to take advantage of all of these new discoveries. It would be a real shame if I died before these technologies, you die the day before age reversal becomes available. That would really suck. So yeah, this is another reason that you should look after yourself, because the next 10 years are going to be amazing.
No, they are, and beyond, even more so. So I love that you said that. So we have, again, I'm so sorry about this with you guys. He's always so well behaved and so quiet, and today I think maybe he just really wants to be a part of the program. I think he's a little bit warm. So okay, so we talked about that. There were some questions, and again, that keep coming up again about cancer. So I would just, for those of you who keep asking about cancer, and I want to honor that concern. I think that Dr. Sinclair has already said, make sure you check with your doctor. He's kind of given you the science behind what his labs have done, the research that they've found. There's even more information in his books. But for you, on an individual basis, it would be best probably to cross-check with your doctor, your oncologist, about whether or not the combination of taking that along, whatever treatment that you're under, it would probably be the best route to check with your doctor on that. I would love for you to share a little bit about your lab, actually, because we didn't really get a chance to cover that, and some of the exciting things that you're doing there that you can share publicly, because it's already what you're able to share, and just to encourage some people on here to make sure that they follow along the journey with the lab as well.
Right. So we are posting on Sinclair _lab now for the past few weeks. One thing I thought of, Serena, is we could do this again sometime, and I could give you all a tour of my lab.
Yeah.
I've never done that, right?
Never. Okay, well, it sounds like I might have to go to Boston and do that then.
All right.
I would love to do that. And I'm seeing a lot of hearts, so I would love to know if you guys would like a tour, a private, not so private because it's live, tour of the lab. and we could then do another part of this series. Amazing, amazing. I love it. And we could kind of tour the lab, and maybe those of you who want to be a mouse but can't be, you can see what it's like to be a mouse in the lab. In the Sinclair lab. Okay, good. Yay, I love that. Well, thank you. That's super exciting. I guess I'm just gonna have to get to Boston pretty soon.
Yeah.
And do that.
Yeah. Well, so my lab is amazing. It's where dreams come true. I like to say, and Serena, I know you like to say this too, that we make the impossible possible. And so we think of what are the world's biggest problems in biology and medicine, and aging is the big one.
Yeah.
And we think, can we reverse the age of the brain? And when we do that, what happens? And so what I'll show you when I give you the Willy Wonka tour is that we have little mini brains that we grow from human cells, skin cells, and we've got them from old people and Alzheimer's patients, and we can now, actually I just reported on our lab's Instagram page that we can reverse the age of those brains and we get better electrical activity. We can measure the electrical activity in those little brains. And then we take old mice and we reprogram their brains. We give them one little injection in their brain, turn on our reprogramming genes. There's 3 of them that we put in there. And the mice have younger brains and they can learn better. We did the same for vision. We reprogrammed the eye. We put a little gene therapy in the eye. And 6 weeks later, the mice that were blind can see again by reversing the age of the eye. Wow. And so I'm super excited about now using this as a therapy to treat blindness in people and eventually turning back the age of the entire body. Not just a year or 2, but by decades.
I mean, and that's, I think that it's, first of all, it's so exciting, but I also think that it's almost like people need to sit with that for a second, that you can literally reverse it by decades, it's not even just years, and all the preventable diseases that can happen when it just doesn't even happen in our bodies.
I thought of something.
Yeah.
Does everybody have a pen or can type? Because I'm going to give you a website to go to.
Okay, yes. Let's do it.
It's Dr. D-O-C-T-O-R, Sinclair, drsinclair.com. Okay. And when you go there, you can sign up for a test that I'm going to make available to everybody for a low price to be able to measure their biological age. And it's going to be simple. It's going to be a cheek swab. It's going to be cheaper than anything that's available. Because we've made a breakthrough in the lab, we can now do this test for much less than it used to cost. And I want everybody to be able to know their age. And then we'll give advice, you and I, and on the website, how to slow that down and even hopefully reverse that number.
Yes, so thank you so much.
We can have negative birthdays.
No, it's incredible. And thank you guys for typing down the website so that everyone can see it. In case there was background noise, you weren't able to hear it. Again, I apologize. I know that a lot of you are making comments about that. drsinclair.com. And I know that there are other labs that people can run to give you some sense of your age, your chronological and biological, but this is the one that you guys are going to use.
And somebody asked, how do we know the age? How does it work?
Yeah.
Now, what we think is causing aging is that the genes have switched on and off in the wrong way. When we're young, we have a system that makes cells read the right genes. As we get older, they lose that ability. And there are little chemicals in our DNA that change predictably as we get older, and we can read those in the lab. It takes us maybe a day or 2. And that code on the DNA tells us with computer algorithms what our actual biological age is. And when we reprogram the body, we put in 3 genes that resets that code so that the chemicals on the DNA go back to how they once were. We don't actually know how it works. We have to figure that out. But we do know there's a backup copy of youth in our bodies, and we can reboot the system, reinstall the software of youth, and get things like vision back again.
Wow. It's incredible. I mean, truly, the work that you do, the work that you guys are doing is just, from my perspective, it's angel work. So truly just like an angel on this on this earth. I love that people are signing on right now and telling us what where they're at on the wait list. Do you really have wait lists in the tens of thousands?
Well, let's maybe boost your viewers up a little on that list, but I think there's 150,000 at this point.
Wow.
But we'll make it available to everybody. Don't worry about that. Just get on the list, and we'll figure out how to bump you up.
Yes. So everyone, just a few things, go to and let's someone just post the website again, Dr. Sinclair, right? .com.
DrSinclair.com.
And
the word doctor and Sinclair.
And then for those of you who aren't already following David, you definitely want to go and follow him on his Instagram page. And he's on all of the social platforms, but he shares a lot of information on his Instagram page. And you want to also follow his lab. Thank you guys so much. I see so many signing up. I did see some comments of people who already ordered the book while we were on. It's really smart move for those of you who don't have the book. This is Lifespan, and I highly recommend that you go ahead and order the book. It's something that I think that you might want to order for people in your family as well. I'm ordering a lot of them today so that I can make sure I'm sending it out to my whole team. They know, and for people that they love and care about. So I really encourage you guys to go ahead and do that. And I just want to take a moment before we jump off. I think we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes left. To acknowledge you guys. You've stayed on for nearly an hour, over 1,000 of you. You've been so kind with all your comments to Dr. Sinclair, and just all the hearts and all the support and the interest in all of this. And so I just want to acknowledge our community today for being amazing, and to acknowledge Dr. David Sinclair for taking the time to be so generous with his knowledge. His time, his energy, and just the work that he's doing in our world, for our future. There aren't even words to really acknowledge that, but I try to do my best. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that. And thank you guys so much for your comments. So I know that there's still more questions, but there's so many questions I can't even keep up. I'm going to try and save all of these if I can. I don't really know how it works on the tech side. But is there anything in particular that you want to add before we dive into a couple more questions before the end?
I've seen a couple of people ask about NR versus NMN.
Yes.
NR is another molecule that you can buy online. I haven't studied NR as much, but the body turns NR into NMN, which is turned into NAD. So these are all ways to raise NAD levels. We know much more about NMN in my lab, and we've done more clinical trials, and that's why I take NMN. But yeah, I'm not going to get into a fight over which is better until I've compared them. But I can say that NMN will raise your NAD levels on average 2 to 3-fold, which is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
But NR is also promising. It's looked really great treating diseases. Oh, Serena, we didn't talk about diseases.
No.
Now, we're testing this now. We're testing a molecule like NMN in 1 or 2 different diseases. Mm-hmm. One is called Friedreich's Ataxia, which is a mitochondrial deficiency disorder in people who are about 30. They end up in wheelchairs. And hopefully early next year we'll know if that works. Mm-hmm. But and then the other disease is COVID-19. We're also testing elderly people for their ability to cycle inside an MRI to see if they have more energy and more blood flow and more NAD. Mm-hmm. But based on the mouse studies, we see more endurance, better blood flow, better cognition. Others have seen protection of the kidney, the liver. It burns energy. It makes animals thinner and their cardiovascular system better. So that all of these things, even better sleep. So the NAD levels go up and down during the day. Mm-hmm. And we see in mice, and mm-hmm. I feel it when I have jet lag, that it will help reset the body's circadian rhythms, that clock. Mm-hmm. And I just learned today that the gene that we work on, Sirtuin, it's called the Sirtuin gene, which right. NAD and Resveratrol work on, does affect people's body clock. And in fact, if you have a certain variant of that gene, mm-hmm. you're either a morning or a night person on average. Mm-hmm. And I have the Sirtuin for being a night owl. And I'm definitely a night owl.
Yeah.
And so that fits.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what I would be. Because it seems like I'm both.
Yeah. Well, you could take NMN to become one or the other, perhaps.
Well, that's so interesting. Well, I am taking that now, along with everything that's on your list. I'm happy to know that I've been taking most of these things. I'm looking at the list printed out here. I've been taking most of these the entire time myself, with the exception of one or two things. And there was a lot of questions about foods. And so since we're kind of coming up to the hour, we won't get a chance to dive into the foods yet. But we can maybe do that on another live, maybe after we do the live tour. Or I actually have a blog up, you guys, and you can go ahead and take a look. It's a kind of a very basic list, but it gives some information as to why those particular foods are helpful for longevity. And for those of you guys that already follow and sign up, you get that information anyway. So you can always reference the site and things that we've posted and shared already. So a couple things I just wanted to, as we're wrapping up, I wanted to remind everyone that you want to go to the bottom to the pinned comment here. You want to follow Dr. David Sinclair, and you also want to follow his lab. And if you don't already have a copy of the book, we can get the book on Amazon. And you might want to get a couple copies of it. And if you want to have access to this replay, and if you want to share it with other people, then I highly recommend that you go to the link in my bio and you put in your email. We will notify you when it's all done and clean and recorded, and we've taken out Gizmo coughing. For those of you that don't understand why Gizmo is coughing so much, it's because he has congestive heart disease. And for some reason, his medication isn't really working for him today. So the reason why he's coughing and he doesn't sound like he's having the happiest day is because he does have this condition. And for those of you who have asked, if Gizmo is also taking the type of things that we're talking about, he is. So we're giving it a try, and we're going to see how he feels in a few weeks. But that's why, because he's a really good boy and a great host. Normally he's quiet. So I know that there's so many more questions. I tried to make sure that we covered most of it. There was a lot about the differences with NAD and NMN and what your protocol is, and Berberine and different health conditions and Resveratrol. So if there's anything else that you would like to cover, David, or if there's something that people are just, they didn't get to answer, please throw into the comments now.
Do I have a podcast? I'm about to record a podcast, an 8-part series. We'll see how that goes, to answer all of these questions and more. And so, yeah, I'm excited about it. Joe Rogan and Whitney Cummings are excited about it. So we're going to start recording that. Andrew Huberman, he does a great scientific podcast. He's a good friend. He's helping. And I've helped him. And he's a leading scientist. I'm a leading scientist. And what I'm doing a podcast for, philosophically, is that I think scientists need to step up and talk more about the facts, because there's a lot of opinions out there, and only a few people in the world read scientific papers every day like I do. And I want to keep everybody up to date on what I'm learning about this field. And that was never possible before we had podcasts and this kind of live streaming. And I'm super excited about it.
Yes, no, I'm so excited about it. And again, it's just another way that you're so generously giving to the world. So I encourage you guys to also, again, go follow Dr. Sinclair, join his list so that you get notified when that podcast launches, and you can go ahead and take in all the information from there as well. There was one question that I saw pop up that I saw a few times, and it was about how old someone should be before they start taking these things.
Good.
And I think that's important.
That's great. Actually, I'm going to let in a bit more light. This is natural light here. I'm looking at the river in Boston out this window.
Oh, wow.
But it's a rainy, dark day. I don't know if you can see that, everybody. Can you see my view? It's really beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it looks a little cloudy.
Yeah, so I'm going to open some windows so you can see me a bit better. Hold on. Okay, so how old should you be? Well, there's no perfect answer to that scientifically, but I started when I was in my 30s, early 30s, and I don't regret it at all. And, now I'm 52 and I still don't have any gray hair, and I'm feeling great. I think if you're in your early 20s, you probably don't need to do more than eat well and exercise. because you already have really high NAD levels and you've got your Sirtuins defending your body. But at age 30, I felt like I was starting to feel different, and I wanted to maintain my energy and my age. So that's really what I've done. My father didn't start till he was in his 50s. He's now 82. He started with exercise and eating less and fasting, and now he does essentially everything we've described today. And he definitely doesn't regret it. You know, at his age, half of his cohort are in the ground already, and he feels like he did when he was 30, and he's still going strong. And when COVID pandemic's over, he's going to come with me to Africa again. And he's looking forward to the next 10 years even more. And that's what's important, is that we shouldn't think of 80 as being old. It doesn't have to be. 90 doesn't have to be old. We can live life like we're in our 30s all the way up, I think even to 100.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and it's so exciting, and the future is so exciting. And just to sort of reiterate, you know, you might not need to start this when you're in your early 20s or when you're in your 20s, but I want to emphasize that it's never too late to start. You know, if you wanted to share this with your parents and they're, you know, older, then it's okay. You can go ahead and share the information, have them get started. So thank you guys so much. I know I'm getting pinged and we're coming up on the hour. I so love sharing this time with you, David. I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for everyone on here as well for taking the time to be a part of today. And I would say just stay tuned. We're obviously going to do something else soon.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing. You're more of an angel than I am. So it's really been great to be on, and I'll come back on again.
Yay. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. And I'll see you guys really soon.